All right, I want to bring in former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Sir, good to have you on the program. Welcome.
It's good to be with you.
You know, one of the issues that John Boehner has been talking about as the reason that he stepped down is that it was so difficult to get bills on the president's desk because of the 60-vote rule in the Senate. So why would Kevin McCarthy have any easier time if John Boehner couldn't get it done? What do you think?
Well, I don't know yet. I mean, Kevin's got a lot of energy. He is really come out of a background in California where he was the Republican leader in the Assembly. And I think he's going to be very much leaning forward. The fact is, the American people would be pretty happy if the House Republicans passed the kind of changes they believe in, and then if the Senate Republicans would fight to get him to the White House. People don't expect it to be easy, but they do want to see the folks they send here fight for the kind of changes they believe in. I think Kevin knows that, and I think his emphasis on generational change is healthy. People need a new generation of leadership. You see that in all the polls, and you also see that, in a sense, in the fact that the outsiders are the ones who are leading for the Republican nomination. The four outside candidates between them have 60% of the vote right now in various polls. So I think Kevin is going to try to represent that kind of feeling.
But, you know, isn't it such a different time right now? I feel like when you were Speaker of the House, you talked. Both sides talked. You went for a coffee or a beer together. I mean, today it's just ice between the two parties, and it almost feels like they don't, even if they agree with some of the legislation, they won't, pass it because they don't want it to get to the president's desk for spite.
Well, I do think this requires a real focus on the grassroots. I try to tell activists who are angry, look, the place to focus your energy isn't the Republican leadership and the Congress. It's on the grassroots. You know, what price do Democrats pay, for example, for voting to fund Planned Parenthood, despite what we've seen in these terrible abortion videotapes? What price do Democrats pay for voting for an Iranian agreement that is a pure surrender to the religious dictatorship of Iran? And as long as they're not paying any price back home, they're going to stick with the president, and they're going to make it very hard to get anything done.
Yeah, that's true. Here's Keith McCullough.
Hey, Newt, it's Keith. Just wanted to ask quickly, Maria and I were sidebarring on McCarthy's energy level. How do you traverse the plane of a guy that said what he said, which is, I don't think that it's a selfie about me anymore. I think it's for the people, by the people. And he looked quite humble.
Yeah, he did.
Do you think there's an ability for any politician in this environment to actually be humble and act humble as opposed to abrasive like somebody I might be able to name if I name names?
Yeah, look, I think that absolutely. And of course, part of it is how you define yourself. I think that one of the things Kevin is going to bring to the job is a real belief in having the whole team play. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see a lot of things being done that get a lot more members engaged. John Boehner had led that in that direction, for example, with the Benghazi Special Committee, which was really the key to Hillary's emails coming up, was John Boehner's work in appointing Trey Gowdy, who is a former prosecutor, to head up that committee. So I think you'll see Kevin not just try to get himself out front. I think you'll see him try to get 30 or 40 or 50 House members all playing a significant role in public policy.
What's most important right now in terms of on the agenda from your standpoint, Newt? I mean, you've got the highway bill, you've got the potential for a government shutdown. Of course, you've got the Export-Import Bank. What do you think should be the priority?
Look, I think the biggest priority we have is actually to hold hearings and to get to the bottom of the chaos in our foreign policy. If you looked yesterday at the president and Putin and Syria, I mean, you're moving into a world which is going to affect every young American, in which the Russians, the Syrians, the Iranians, and the Iraqis now have an intelligence organization that excludes the United States. So we've spent all those years, lost all those lives, and we're now seeing the Russians play an increasingly dominant role in the very region that we invested in. And I think we need to have a lot more understanding as a country, and the Congress has a role to play in holding the kind of hearings that lay out for the country what a disaster, how dangerous the world is getting, whether it's the Chinese building islands in the South China Sea, it's the Russians in Ukraine and Syria, or it's ISIS continuing to grow. I think the numbers I saw and the number of new volunteers going to ISIS was startling, and I think that it is a really big problem.
Yeah.
Hey, Newt, there is no candidate for House Speaker from the roughly, 3 dozen, let's call them Tea Party members in the House. Do they get on board with whomever is elected the Speaker?
look, they get to do what they want to, but there's an objective fact about legislative politics. You know, in the end, you got to have a majority. It took me years, almost a decade, to build the majority that ultimately took over the House party and then won the '94 election for the first time in 40 years. You can't just gripe and hold press conferences and throw temper tantrums. If you're serious about governing, you've got to work hard, go out and help elect candidates, build a record. That takes a tremendous amount of energy. You're going to see, but you're seeing solid conservatives. I mean, Tom Price, for example, who just got endorsed by Jeb Henseling and Paul Ryan, would make a very solid conservative majority leader. And I think people need to recognize none of these guys are left-wingers. I mean, you know, what you have is an argument between the I'm purer than you caucus. And by the way, for that caucus, no matter what you are, they're purer than you are.
Sure.
So don't worry about trying to please them because they're still purer than you are.
I think this is such an important question that Dagan raises because this is the issue, the division within the party.